Hello again, welcome to the video clip. This time we're looking at clause 9.2, internal audit, and it's for ISO 9001 quality management. So this clause is broken into two subclauses. Let's look at them in turn. 9.2.1. The organisation shall conduct internal audits at planned intervals to provide information on whether the quality management system A conforms to the organization's own requirements for its quality management system, 2, the requirements of this international standard, and B, is effectively implemented and maintained. So B is to test whether the management system itself is implemented and maintained. And A brings in the requirements that we've been speaking to throughout the standard. In each clause, we've established or accepted requirements by determining the needs and expectations of interested parties, customers, and so on. And we've also introduced compliance obligations, mitigations, policies and controls where they all need to be planned through our operations. Now it's the turn of the internal audit function to go back and look at how we've executed all of our planned activities, and to make sure that, including inspections, to make sure that all of those planned activities have met their objectives. So the simplicity of it is we take an approach where we look at the different aspects that need to be audited. So first of all, from an Annex SL perspective, the actual management clauses enable ISO customers will be familiar with the way we break the standard up into 12 incremental pieces and provide templates accordingly. Likewise with the statement of applicability for high-level reviews of each clause of that set of controls. Also, we would have monthly looks at supplier evaluations. External providers is such an integral part of all management system standards. And we would also look at the inspections, whether they be from a health and safety, environmental, information security, or whatever other aspects we want to do from an inspections perspective. So it's all about setting up all of those controls and making sure that we have a methodology in place which we can demonstrate is effective, to go back and look and document reports on our evaluations of our performance with regard to the documented and stated objectives. So that's the first part of this. It's really about making sure that we have internal audits for each of the processes that we would have established in clause 4.4 and documented throughout the system. And it's about making sure that we look at them in a frequency to ensure that we have enough oversight, and that's what we're going to look at now. Part 2 of this clause on internal audit sets out a very specific range of criteria for consideration, particularly at Part A. And it's important that you kind of break it down in your own mind and look at each part separately to determine how it applies to your own business. Let's have a look at it. The organization shall A, plan, establish, implement and maintain an audit program, including the frequency, methods, responsibilities, planning requirements and reporting, which shall take into consideration the importance of the processes concerned, changes affecting the organization, and the results of previous audits. There's a number of mouthfuls there, and each one of them requires its own bit of analysis. Looking at the importance of how an auditor looks at this aspect. They might not break down each individual aspect throughout this particular criteria, but they will be looking at, from I suppose, a management perspective, a high-level view, to kind of just be assured that all of these things are integrated into the internal audit function. So the first thing that you need to make sure you understand is that it requires a program with, as in 921, just a few minutes earlier into the video, we looked at the intervals, regular intervals being an important phrase that was in there. And so the determination here is that you have an internal audit program and that the frequency is proportionate to the contextual issues and the changes and the results of previous audits, as mentioned there at the last part of that sentence. So we better move on. B, define the audit criteria and scope for each audit. So what this means is that at the moment of audit, there will be particular things that need to be considered and included into the consideration of the audit itself. So, for example, if there had been previous non-conformities found at a previous audit, well, it's worth considering, what resources did we provide to correct whatever non-conformities that arose, and have any risk assessments or further tests been carried out since that preventive action or corrective action, and is there a need to go further? Is it suitable and effective to meet our needs? Move on. C, select auditors and conduct audits to ensure objectivity and impartiality of the audit process. This is very important, and we encourage people to understand that the basic interpretation of the phrase internal audit is the organization auditing itself. However, there is a need for objectivity and impartiality when auditing, because otherwise, how can the organization stand over the results of the audits if the person carrying out the audit benefits from the result? So where you've got a small organization, we recommend that at least 2 people be trained to carry out internal audits, but using the IRCA 2-day internal auditor course as a competency requirement. And otherwise, bring somebody like ourselves in to work with you on the internal audit function. And that way, you've got independence can be maintained, and it's protecting, I suppose, the conformance aspect toward the criteria in the standard is the objective of the exercise. So selecting auditors is something that a certification auditor will be looking for, and they will like to see, I suppose the more complex the organization, and particularly in the data protection world, where the more sensitive to data being processed, this is where an auditor will expect higher levels of screening criteria for people carrying out the audit functions. Point D, ensure that the results of the audits are reported to relevant management. So that's basic. So internal audit functions must report into top management, and it can't be that the report gets blocked along the way. E, take appropriate correction and corrective actions without undue delay. Again, that's a proportionate thing. I suppose don't misunderstand either the fact that an auditor will expect that things that are easy to correct and to carry out, if it requires very little effort to fix whatever the finding is, the expectation is that it's not going to be left because it doesn't have a big impact on the operation. F, retain documented information as evidence of the implementation of the audit program and the audit results. That's a given in ISO communities. You're all aware that nearly every clause requires that if there's a criteria to document something, it's to retain information so that you can make the system auditable, I suppose, is the way to express it. There's an important note at the bottom, note C ISO 19011 for guidance. That's in fact the standard that's published for guidance on auditing of management systems. So I can just take a review of 9.2 overall. So it requires us to audit our processes, and I guess that would include the effectiveness of systems as well as processes. So by that, I mean, auditing of the mechanisms we have for monitoring systems and the controls on a statement of applicability when we consider 27001. And here, where we have systems that are relied upon for operations, those systems will need to be tested to make sure that reporting is accurate and so on. I guess the simplicity of the total management system that the Enable ISO customers will be working with is that we've taken everyone through a process of building silos of systems and information that can be audited, so that the whole point here is that when you engage with the system and document everything as you're supposed to document it for as it's intended, the result is that when it comes to auditing, all of the supporting information will be there to provide for audit criteria, and that's the place where you would document the results subsequent to the audits for further analysis and feeding into the management review function. So just to note, just to finish, the requirement for an internal audit program is where the auditor would rather see that you have frequent sampling audits, and rather than going into huge amounts of complex detail auditing every part of the process, really what the intent should be is to audit those parts of the process that produce some kind of a valuable reporting information. So where there might be a critical failure point or potential exposure to a data breach or to human error or to machine failure. So those critical failure points in the process is what the audit of a process should be looking for. And we're being reminded throughout the criteria as well that we need to keep our minds towards any potential impacts of contextual issues, obligations towards legislation and so on. So I'm hoping that all of this is making sense to you, and please get in touch with us via email, contact through the website or the chat box, which is there for that very purpose. Okay. Happy days. Thank you very much for watching.